Hello and welcome back to the second episode of Red Tinted Glasses this week. Well, actually, it might be the third by the time you're tuning in because we'll have already reviewed the action from the first leg and we'll also be looking to react to the draw and second leg from Bucharest. But at time of recording, this is being done on Monday night, so hope those heads aren't too sore whilst you're travelling back if you're listening to this. And if you're watching, no, you're not seeing double. No, Ross is not my dad. But delighted to preview this weekend's game against Falkirk, to be joined by Ross from the Falkirk Daft podcast. Ross, welcome to Red Tinted Glasses. How are you?
Thank you so much, Glen. And yeah, I'm glad we've kind of crossed that bridge early doors, because as soon as I saw, because I watched a couple of your previous episodes as well in the build up, and I thought he's a little bit of a ringer for me. A more good looking one, and you shave your head, whereas I really should be doing that anytime soon. Yeah. So, but no, really good to be here, mate.
I've embraced the hair loss, but no, absolute pleasure to get you on. I'm really excited for the game this weekend, as well as we were discussing before recording. And as I said, we're doing this on Monday night. 1,200 tickets being sold by Falkirk, so probably one of the biggest away crowds we'll see at Pittodrie outside the usual two suspects. So that's really going to add to the atmosphere, I think, this weekend. And obviously, I think what many expected when Falkirk were promoted back to the Premiership, that they would bring decent crowds. And I think a kind of perfect place to start. I'm sure happy to relive the memories from last season. But more specifically, how has life been over the summer building for your return to the Premiership?
It's been exciting. As you said, it's been some time, and it's not been a straightforward journey. We've obviously been out of the Premier League, or Premiership as it is now, for 15 years. Dipped our toe for a few years in League One as well, which was horrific. However, the last sort of 2-3 years has been really phenomenal, and it kind of triggered from two things. So firstly, the fans took control of the club. So the club is fan owned. I wouldn't say well, to a degree, fan run as well, but we have some amazing people, both Falkirk fans and non-Falkirk fans, employed at the football club. And that happened about 3 years ago at our lowest ebb. Really, we'd finished mid-table in League One, and it really was like on and off the pitch was just horrendous. The one constant though was the fans that you've just mentioned. We didn't really lose our sort of hardcore support at home anyway. So we're still shifting sort of 2,500-3,000 season ticket holders. Obviously, it's kind of well noted now we've sold out of season tickets. We're about 6,000 season tickets now. And until we get a new stand and final stand in, that's as much as that's going to be. But yeah, 3 years ago, it was a huge turning point, and giving the job to John McGlynn and Paul Smith has just made such a difference. His style of football, probably different to what Aberdeen fans maybe think of John McGlynn, because when he was previously in the Premiership, either as Hearts or Livingston manager, it was probably more Route 1, pretty direct football. However, when he left those jobs and ended up working under Brendan Rodgers at Celtic, he's learned so much in terms of coaching, style of play, and realistically, that is how we play. Is pretty much the same sort of formation and style as Celtic. I will say, not as good, but that is the mindset, is to attack teams. So we don't really I don't want to label a certain team from West Lothian as negative, but we don't have like 10 men behind the ball. So that's not his style, but the work he's done to bring in a lot of talented footballers has been superb. And like, it has been in my time. So I started going to watch Falkirk in the very, very late 80s as a 7 or 8 year old boy, and this is up there with some of the best football last year and the year before, some of the best football I've seen from Falkirk.
Do you think John McGlynn's more than exceeded? I know obviously it's probably easy to say given that you've got promotion, but when he first came in, he's exceeded a lot of expectation from Falkirk fans.
I would say so. I'm not really sure. Well, obviously the goal was always to get to the Premiership. We've probably got to the Premiership a little bit earlier than the club thought. I don't think they thought we would get promotion. Sorry, I think they thought we'd get promotion from League One, but I didn't think they thought we would win the Championship at the first time of asking, which we did. Yeah. So we probably are a season early than they had anticipated. But you ride it, you go with it, and the fans have certainly done that. As I say, that it's a fan-owned club now. We don't have a sugar daddy or anyone with millions sitting in the bank to top us up. So we are where we are. He probably has the safest job, in my opinion, in the Premiership. Maybe David Martindale's maybe another who's got he's working wonders with the money that he has. But John McGlynn has a lot of goodwill in the tank. And even if, and I know it's very early to talk about like May already, but if the worst were to happen next May, he would be more than capable of bringing us back up. But on the flip side, I also think he's more than capable of keeping us in the Premiership and potentially flourishing at some point. We are short of recruits. He's working on it. He did say he's quoted the teams that the players will be coming from down in England, and it's a matter of them being released from their clubs in terms of loan deals. So that's the expectation. By the time the game happens on Sunday, we may have 3 or 4 new players in the squad. I think we need it, to be honest, just to top up what's there. But it is, going back to your original question, it's been an exciting summer. It really has. And yes, the last sort of result we had against Livingston was a sore one. But we're used to having a sore result off Livingston, because last year that is exactly what happened in every game. So if we can do well in the others, we might be all right.
Yeah, the fair had your number, and I think, a couple of points that you've made there about the season ticket sales is great to see. Maybe from an away fans point of view, it's now going to be yourselves and Hearts that fans debate about. But look, I think for your first season back to have that excitement and attendance is to be commended. And as I said already, to see the size of support travelling up to Pittodrie, especially as we discussed for a Sunday game, which might have killed some of the enthusiasm, is also excellent to see. And for those that will have watched Falkirk, of course, with the availability last season from the Friday night games, know that there is an exciting brand of football. And yes, the transfer window remains open. So some of what you say today in terms of threats and players may change between now and Sunday, but that's also the same from an Aberdeen perspective as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Obviously, warming up for the league campaign, you had the League Cup group stage. Started with a very thumping victory over Brecon, 7-0. 3 wins in total in that group game. You drew against Cove, but by all accounts, very much dominated that game. Robbie Much up against his former club, pulling out a few exceptional saves. So you get through that. Okay, last time out, you defeated 4-1 to Celtic. But in terms of the Premiership and how you started that, give us a flavour of what that opening day was like against Dundee United in that 2-2 draw. How was the feeling after that?
Obviously, in terms of pre-game, very excited everyone was, the flag being raised, and we performed really, really well on the day. Probably should have won. If having watched it back a few times, we definitely, with the chances we had, especially early on, we should have probably took 3 points that day. So that was a learn, as John McGlynn says as well, because you need to, if you don't punish teams, you won't win games, and if you don't keep a clean sheet, you're up against it as well. So, and the defending, if I'm being honest, the first 2 Premiership games has been slack at times. So we expect 1, potentially maybe 2 centre halves to come in. And this week, potentially, certainly 1 anyway. And we've got a couple of centre halves back from injury in the next few weeks as well. So that will all help us. But it has been a little bit ropey. But yeah, I think the feeling was we probably should have taken the 3 points against Dundee United. They too, like yourselves, were off the back of an away European game. I don't think they looked leggy at all, if I'm being honest. I wouldn't have said they looked leggy, but I think the difference is between Championship and Premiership is when you do give someone a chance, they'll take it. And Dundee United certainly did that day. Likewise, the week after, we travelled to Livingston in good confidence. Backed again by a really healthy away crowd. It's not far. It's not as far as going up to Aberdeen, but I think we had about 2,200 or something at Livingston, which the team came out to. So there was no lack of support or enthusiasm there. It went the same way as our meetings with Livingston last year, in the respects of going back to missing chances. We missed 2 really brilliant opportunities at 0-0, and I think one or two that of both or both go in. It's a different game, but
Mhm.
we didn't. And then Livingston score, and yeah, they just seemed to have our number. Unfortunately, we just didn't create much the rest of the game. The subs came on, just nothing was kind of working for us. We scored, but it was never likely to be a huge comeback. And I think when Livingston scored their third one late on, that was the sort of nail in the coffin that day. But we still took a lot of confidence from it in the respects of, like you said earlier, we've scored in our two opening Premiership ties. We then go to Celtic Park and a bit of a free hit. In fact, it was a free hit.
Mhm.
And at the time of recording, I think we're still the only team to score against Celtic so far.
Mhm.
And it was a fantastic strike by Keelan Adams, who's really just been on a phenomenal run since he signed about 18 months ago. He was working in Costa Coffee on Saturdays 18 months ago, and now he's in the Premiership. So, like,
Mhm.
what a journey for that young lad. And so, yeah, we prepare for Aberdeen. I don't know what our starting 11 will look like, as we said. I've got a vague
Mhm.
idea based if there's no changes were to come in. John is quite consistent in his lineups and his formation, certainly. But yeah, I think we are probably a few starting players of higher quality away from being finished, in my opinion.
Yeah, in terms of the Livingston game, you say there's some confidence to take from it. The result maybe not
No.
the be all, obviously, from what you were expecting. Uh, The media would have probably built that up on the fact that both teams drawing their first games, looking to solidify some points on the board at this early stage. Was there any disappointment from the away support that you didn't get the victory because your next up game is a trip to Aberdeen?
No, I think every game is huge in this league. Certainly no, in fact, every game is a huge game for every team in this league because
Mhm.
you're one victory or one defeat away from changing how you're getting on. So from that perspective, it was disappointing to lose the 3 points because you would expect Livingston to be one of the teams that will be around us in the league. So from that perspective, it was a disappointment to not get something. And Livingston, fair play, they did deserve the victory that day. I think how Livingston set up are different to probably a few of the other teams in the league. Livingston don't really use possession football or try and hit you down the wings. They will
Mhm.
command the midfield, and that's an area where we are kind of struggling just now because we're not really winning the midfield battle. So that again, from a positional perspective, I can see probably another player coming into the. I think what we're missing is like a dirty centre mid. If I go back to like days of yore, we used to have a guy called Davy Nichols. I think he may have been not an Aberdeen player, but he's based up that way at some point. I think he was at Peterhead, and he was like a dirty midfielder. So I think someone in that mould would
Mhm.
probably suit us, and that will allow the ball players who we have in the team to go and do their stuff.
Yeah, and we'll come on to the ball players and some of the threats and obviously weaknesses that you have. And one weakness for some right this moment will be the fact that you've conceded 9 goals in your last 3 games. Obviously, that's caveated by the fact we're including that League Cup defeat to Celtic.
Yeah.
2 goals in every game of those 3 games. Sorry, I should say is and I feel bad saying this because those of us in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, but is that a concern for Falkirk fans, the amount of goals being conceded at this moment in time?
So far, yes. I think the biggest thing for me is that they've all came from individual errors, unfortunately.
We know how that
Um,
feels ourselves.
yeah, yeah. And so self-inflicted errors. And I think once we cut those out, like we had done, like I know it's a different level, but last year we had a really good defensive record against some top strikers and top wingers. And we just really need to kind of get back to doing what we were doing really well. It is a new centre half pairing that we've got.
Mhm.
currently anyway, until the injuries come back that are out, because obviously our captain, Cole Donaldson, is injured just now. Is probably the main person that would come back in. And we do miss him when he's not there, both vocally and from his experience as well. So, yeah, just individual errors, unfortunately, has been a bit of a killer for us. I think if we lose a goal, even a goal a game, which is an improvement of where we have been so far, it might still not be enough. And I know we are a team that scores, as you've said. We have scored in every game that we've played so far, apart from that Cove Cup tie. So we do have goals in us. The threats are there. It's just, can we keep a clean sheet is going to be the biggest thing for me.
And I suppose going into a game like Sunday, when we've shown that our defence is fragile and it is a concern. Again, as I said, the last game at time of recording was 2 individual mistakes that hurt us. Does that give you confidence for this weekend that, as you said, barring that Cove game, you've scored in every game this season, that you can potentially exploit weaknesses in the Aberdeen backline?
I do. I think there is a huge confidence in the Falkirk team and support that we will score. We've shown that over the last 2 or 3 years. We are an exciting team to watch. I think Aberdeen fans might be, well, if they've not watched us on the Friday night games last year, they might be quite surprised as to how open we are. But the flip side to that is the more open you are, you do leave gaps. And that is where our downfall has been so far. So it is just keeping it real tight. If we can keep it tight at the back, we will pick up points this season.
I think for a lot of teams, though, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. No, of course, and it feels and sounds really basic, but if you don't do the basics right, you won't win games of football.
Football's an easy game when you speak about it, let alone have to worry about playing it. But obviously, as well, it's not been maybe the start that Falkirk would have hoped for. I'm not sure, maybe on fan expectations, but similarly for Aberdeen as well, because of course, this is a game featuring the 2 bottom sides currently in the Scottish Premiership. And I've not been short of saying that for me, Sunday is a must-win for Jimmy Tulane and Aberdeen to really kickstart our league campaign. Does the fact that for a lot of Aberdeen fans, this will feel like a must-win game help or hinder Falkirk, do you feel?
I'm hoping it's going to help us because from what I know, obviously Aberdeen have got a real big home crowd, but it's an expectant one as well. And I think the expectation, and this is not me having a go at my own team, but you would expect Aberdeen to want to beat Falkirk at home, and they probably think they will. So there will be an expectation there. I'm hoping Falkirk can play on that a little bit. We do try and retain the ball quite a lot. I don't know whether that's enough to turn the crowd. I know it can do at certain stadiums like Hearts and Rangers and Celtic. If you do hold on to it, they get the natives get restless, as they say. So I think if we can do that and do it well, we will stand ourselves a good chance, and that might be enough of a little bit of an edge to give Falkirk. So I'm looking forward to it. I think the players will be looking forward to it as well. I watched the European game last week. The pitch looks phenomenal. Aberdeen, Toddy's always had a good atmosphere, so I think it'll be the same. Obviously, I know Thursday's a huge opportunity, but the flip side is you're going to be in Europe anyway. So that I think that's a big thing for Aberdeen. So they know they've got that safety net of European football anyway. So I think Sunday will be a completely different game, regardless as to how Thursday goes. But I think there will be a huge expectation from an Aberdeen perspective.
And I think you're right, regardless of how Thursday goes, maybe depending on the manner, if we were to lose the game, if it's individual errors again, but equally, if we're to win the game and we're going into Sunday off of the back of that Europa League draw and all that excitement, it gives the players added motivation. Yeah. I think the other thing to take into account as well is we're going into an international break, so it's not like we've got a build-up of that. So yes, there might be some tiredness, of course, having been in Bucharest, but I would like to think that we've got a deep enough squad to rotate. You've mentioned, obviously, John McGlynn's style and how he approaches game. Falkirk like to keep the ball. Do you think there's any change in mentality coming up to Pittodrie this weekend from how John would normally approach a game?
No, I don't think so. He may well adopt the same team selection that he put out against Celtic. And what I mean by that is he did change the lineup to play Celtic, not massively, but he did change it a little. So we had a little bit more dig in midfield. So we brought in Henry Cartwright, who's a centre mid who's on loan from Leicester City. And that was his first start. And he paired up with Brad Spencer in the middle of the park. And that did really give us that little bit of extra dig in the midfield. Whereas your Scott Arfields, Dylan Tates, they are more of an attack-minded midfielder. So I think from that perspective, he may well go similar in terms of the starting lineup, but I will caveat that obviously if he signs someone in that mould this week. So, but no, I do expect us to be cautious to a degree, but I fully expect the usual John McGlynn attack mindedness to come out on Sunday.
And I do think, given Jimmy Tillene's desire to play an attacking brand of football or an open brand of football, because I know some people might question whether it's attacking or not, does open up Sunday's game to be an exciting one, because it's two managers that look to play attractive football and score goals. So this game, as much as I think
I agree. I think there will be goals. We previewed the match on our podcast last night. As I said to you, we had a well-known Aberdeen fan, Colin, join ours. He's a local lad to Falkirk as well, and he thinks the same. He thinks there'll be goals, and I can't disagree with him. I think there's two teams there that will be desperate for the 3 points, and I just can't see it being a 0-0. Watch it be a 0-0 all over. But I honestly wouldn't shock me if it was a 2-2 or a 3-3 or something along those lines.
Yeah, and that's it. I do think, as much as we're gonna speak up, and it'll now end 0-0, but there is goals, I think, for both teams to be had. Both teams want to cut out the defensive slackness that they've had, but I think there'll be opportunities at either end for both teams. When we then look at the threats Falkirk possess, we'll come on to kind of maybe your concerns from an Aberdeen point of view. Calvin Miller, Ethan Ross, two familiar names to Aberdeen fans. Ethan Ross more so, of course, coming back to Pittodrie for the first time. Dylan Tate's another player that I quite like that you've got in the ranks as well. Who should Aberdeen fans be watching out for this weekend that can hurt us?
Well, one thing that may cheer you up to the degree is Ethan Ross will definitely not be taking part at all. He took a serious injury against Livingston, and he is out for a period of time. I don't know if it's season ending, but I expect Ethan to unfortunately be out for a number of months. However, what that does do, as I say, the formation won't change. We will have two wingers, we'll have someone in the 10, and we'll have a forward up top. So that's not likely to change. Calvin Miller on the right-hand side or left, depending on who John decides to replace Ethan Ross, because Calvin can play either side. Left-hand side is his natural side. He is someone who has got goals in him. He sets up a lot of goals as well. So, yeah, Calvin Miller out on the left. Our forward will either be Brian Graham of Partick Thistle.
I forgot you had him.
Yeah, so will either be Brian Graham or Ross McKeever, who has been the last couple of games been our starting forward. Ross is a lot more mobile due to his age, firstly, because he's 10 years younger than Brian, but he's got goals in him, especially from distance. So I think,
as we saw against Livingston.
Yeah. So he has got goals in him. And I think for me, those are our two sort of danger players. The one I'd caveat, and I don't know if he'll start or not, but Scott Arfield has popped up with 12 or 13 big moment goals since he signed in January. He's not someone who we are getting 90 minutes out of as a player. He's obviously at a certain vintage now as well, but he has popped up with some big moments. So should he pop up with a winner or an equaliser late on, it wouldn't shock me.
I've still got PTSD from the last time Scott Arfield popped up with a late winner at Pittodrie, but I'm sure he would be a popular pick if he did feature this weekend. In terms of Aberdeen, of course, as I said, recording this before Thursday night's game, Shayden Morris didn't make the matchday squad last Thursday. if he features this week in any form, it would be good to see him.
Yeah.
My interest around what one of the things you said was that midfield battle and Falkirk's maybe inability to win the midfield battle. Of course, a lot of talk around the Dons right now is who should be in that midfield. Should Dante Polvara be starting games? And depending, I think a lot will depend on how we line up on Thursday night, may then reflect Thursday. I would like to see Dante starting this game, potentially alongside Leighton Clarkson. I think they could both offer enough. But equally, you can also see the argument for Shinnie and Nielsen and have that, as you said, that dirty midfielder in there doing the hard work. Other players, of course, on the wing, we've seen Topi Keskinen cause defences problems. Still a lot of question marks around his final product. Again, coming on to final product, you've got Cassini Yengi and Esther Sokler vying for that starting spot. Marko Lazetic, could he be in line to make his Aberdeen debut? Still not registered for the European squad, so does he make his Dons debut this weekend? And Nicholas Milanovic, who's made a bright start to his Pittodrie career alongside Adilo Sheesh, will also be looking to cause Falkirk problems. Where is your concern going into this game when you look at the Aberdeen squad that can hurt Falkirk?
No, I agree, Glenn. I think from a midfield perspective, some of the names you mentioned there, obviously Shinnie's a well-known player to Falkirk fans as well over the years for different reasons, different sides. But he's someone who I fully expect. I think he will play against Falkirk. I get the vibe he might not start on Thursday, so I could see him potentially starting against Falkirk. And if he does, that could be a problem for us because he is that type of player that probably we would love to have in the middle of the park. The forward from AC Milan, Lazetic, it just feels, I hate it when teams sign a big name player and from a big team, and I can almost imagine him either making his debut and having a belter, or he comes on with 20 minutes to go and he picks up with a goal. So listen, it'll be some scary moments, as there always is when you play big clubs, big teams. We're not the biggest of teams either, so I think that is a worry for me when we talk about set plays. We do lose our fair share of goals from set plays. We don't tend to give away too many goals from the wing. But yeah, set plays have been, we've hemorrhaged goals probably in the last 18 months from set pieces. So corners, free kicks has been a sore one. So again, just going back to what we said earlier on, if we can do the basics right, clear your lines if you're a centre half, if you're a fullback, try and put it up the wing, get the wingers running, and for our midfielders, as I say, Brad Spencer will be a definitive starter. It's who plays alongside him. Where we find a lot of success, Glenn, and this will be interesting to see how Aberdeen, the midfield, is won on Sunday, is we like to play out from the back, and I know Aberdeen do too. So I think it will be interesting to see who is better at that, because where we struggle is when the opposition do close us down really, really quickly, don't give us a lot of time, because the centre halves will play it to Brad. Brad will then look for options. Where we are unable to do that is where we then struggle to hold on to the ball. So for me, set pieces from Aberdeen, but just the unknown. We're coming up against teams that we've obviously not faced before, never mind in a long time, but before. We obviously had a small inkling as to kind of about Dundee United and Hearts and Celtic because we played them in the last 12 months in cup games. But for Aberdeen, this is a whole new ball game for us. So it'll be exciting, but I think it will be a nerve-wracking. There'll be some nerve-wracking moments. But then the unknown side is the same for Aberdeen playing Falkirk as well.
Absolutely. And I think, kind of listening to what you've said, as much as there will be an unknown, potentially a weakness is how regular John plays the same formation, same style. So if that's not tweaked, maybe it's a little bit easier in inverted commas to do some prep for. Interesting your comments there about set pieces. We've scored from corners in our last 2 games as well. So maybe things finally clicking on the training ground for us being a threat at set pieces again, because I know that has been a problem from us defending set pieces. And I think, yeah, it probably plays into the fact that we're labeling this as an exciting game that both teams do look to play out from the back. And I think, yeah, whatever team can get the press right, will have the most success. But either way, sometimes the thought of a Sunday 3 p.m. game, sometimes just generally a Sunday game, isn't one that fills most with confidence. But we out for some lunch and a few drinks before the game, and yeah, I think this is a rare occasion where I am actually looking forward to a Sunday game. As you said, a long time since Falkirk have made the trip to Pittodrie, backed by a strong support. There'll, as always, be a good home support there as well. So I think this really does have the makings for a good game, and fingers crossed also on the back of a win on Thursday night. But the excitement from that European draw, I'm sure people will be planning this weekend. Trips abroad, so lots to look forward to.
Glen. 100%, and I think, like me personally, I can't speak for every Falkirk fan, but you want Scottish teams to do well in Europe. And as we made mention earlier, we've got a good friend who's a huge Aberdonian, and I think you want teams to do well. You want people to have the excitement, and fingers crossed you do get through, because I know the money's probably not massively different between the 2 competitions, but from an excitement perspective, you'd play some huge teams in the group stage. So yeah, no, listen, all the very best for Thursday night. Obviously, I know this is going out afterwards, so hopefully you've done it.
Yeah, well, hopefully, and I would say all the very best for Sunday, but given we're bottom of the table currently, I absolutely would not mean it. But what I will say is thank you very much for coming on Red Tinted Glasses. For those that want to maybe hear Colin's appearance on the Falkirk Daft, where can folk tune into your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So everywhere that you can get a podcast, so obviously Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., and we are on YouTube as well. So you'll see Colin's lovely. Actually, he's got a very similar colour hair to me as well. So it's just going to be a few doppelgangers on the podcast. But yeah, that's that. Our preview episode is out on Thursday morning, and obviously will be up and available for everyone there.
Yeah, so of course, if you're here watching on YouTube, go over and check out the Falkirk Daft podcast as well. Maybe give them a subscribe as well. Like the video here, comment your thoughts ahead of the match as well. And also, if you've been listening on audio, go and check out Falkirk Daft as well. Remember to follow us if you're listening on audio. But until next time, we'll be back after the game at the weekend, looking back on it. As the Dons head into the international break. Fingers crossed, not bottom of the table. But once again, a huge thanks to Ross for joining me on this episode. Until next time, we'll see you then.